Hey, this is Mike Diercksen from Proactive, and you're listening to the Building Byte podcast. Tune in as we spotlight our guest, Cheri Hanes, Vice President and Head of Construction Innovation and Sustainability at AXA XL. Our episode today is focused on AI and construction, brave new world or old hat. For more information on this episode and others, please check out the Building Byte at www.buildwithproactive.com.
Welcome to the Building Byte podcast, a podcast for construction contractors, owners, and insurance professionals, where you'll hear from the experts about key topics to help you be successful. I'm Chris Epps, Vice President at Proactive, and I'm joined here with my co-host Mike Diercksen, our Manager of Marketing and Business Development. Our guest today, a good friend of the podcast and one of my favorite people to talk to, is Cheri Hanes. And she is definitely a true thought leader in this industry. Cheri is now the Vice President, Head of Construction Innovation and Sustainability at AXA XL. Cheri, how are you this afternoon?
It is always a good afternoon when I get to talk to Proactive. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you. And this is definitely an interesting one. I'm looking forward to this one. Mike, how about yourself? How are you this afternoon?
Doing good, Chris. Likewise with Cheri. It's always a good conversation. Really excited for this.
Yeah, I always learn something every time I talk to Cheri. So happy to jump in here. And Cheri, as always, pleasure to have you back on the show. And, you know, while a lot of our guests may be familiar with your name and your face at this point, but we definitely want to highlight your new title since we last spoke, because I think that kind of lends itself to our topic today. Can you give our listeners some insight into your career path leading you to that new role as the Head of Construction Innovation and Sustainability for AXA?
Yeah, of course. I do come from a construction background. I have worked in very large and very small construction companies in roles in operations and pre-construction and as a partner in a small construction company. In my heart, I still think of myself as a construction person. It was most of my career, but I mean, risk and insurance is gaining on it with every passing year. I joined XL Group. It was then XL Group in 2012 as a subcontractor default insurance risk engineer. And then I went on to lead that group. Spectacular team, the best I've ever worked with. Super hard to make the decision to take the leap into this new role. But throughout all of my construction roles, there was a thread of sustainability, both helping walk lead projects down the path to certification, helping people get their accreditations in the various systems, et cetera. So when the opportunity presented for this role that contained sustainability, that was very hard. I had to take it, right? And honestly, the tech piece of it, the innovation piece of it that came with it, I really thought they were separate lanes. I thought, okay, here's sustainability, here's innovation that will go along on parallel tracks. But the deeper I get into the role, the more I realize it's an absolute intersection. You cannot do one of those things without affecting the other. The role is an amazing challenge, and I'm really grateful to have the chance to take it on.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. And Cheri, like you said, it's been a through line in your career, and it's been a through line in our conversations as well, right? You're always innovating and thinking about what's next, which brings us to our topic, and I'm excited for this one. So the topic is AI in construction. Is it a brave new world or old hat? So I'm sure there's many of our guests who are listening who are kind of eager to hear more about that. Can you share with us your take on how AI is playing in the space? I mean, has it been here the whole time and we just didn't know it? Is there something new and exciting on the way? And for all of us who've seen The Terminator, nothing to fear, right? No Skynet just quite yet.
Great question. Though I think it may be more of a Matrix scenario than a Terminator scenario. Okay. So is AI scary? And should we be tentative about whether we should even touch it? Are the machines going to take over if we do? Or is it just another step in the evolution of construction? What I've always loved about construction is the creativity of it. We can literally solve any problem, and we do. The industry is always finding a better way, adopting a new tech, learning or creating a new means or methods of construction to actually construct some architect's dream, right? And what's the big look? So it's what we do. We innovate all the time. And if you think about AI for very long at all, you'll probably conclude that it's a bit of both. So number one, it's not as new as it seems. AI uses that you're almost certainly familiar with and have been using for years are like Siri, Alexa, all your deliveries, Uber and Lyft, your Facebook feed, targeted ads, facial recognition, navigation in your car, navigation in commercial air travel, plagiarism checkers, everything about your smartphone, right? So if you got on social media this morning, maybe checked Facebook or scrolled in Google a little bit, you got in your car and used your GPS to go somewhere, ask Alexa to play you some music, used a credit card, used Google or your smartphone, you're already using AI. And well, when you put it that way, I think we're already in the matrix, right? We're already really plugged in. And the new thing, the new side of this is that we're bringing that power to construction. And what a moment we're living in. I'm so excited about the potential, even as I'm advising caution in the applications, right? So, we've been interested in how construction tech can improve the industry for a long time at AXA XL. Back in 2020, we decided we should help understand the construction industry's tech adoption picture to help companies understand how they stack up, to create targeted ideas for the next steps in the roadmap. So we created that benchmarking to measure it, the TAMI, the Tech Adoption Maturity Index. And it looks at 4 categories of tech. One of them focused on corporate commitment, and gets a picture of what they're using, how well they've implemented it. And then we craft a report back to them to the subject of the benchmarking with blinded peer comparisons, tips, tricks that are related to whatever we learned there, and what are your next steps. It's a very powerful tool for our insureds. But we also learn a lot, and we like to share that data. So that kind of the 30,000 foot view, construction tech is booming. I mean, if your inbox, if our listeners' inbox look anything like my inbox, and I suspect it does, you know this already, we've seen significant increases in tech availability and usage overall, in the sophistication of the implementations, in the investments that companies, both software companies and construction companies, are making in the space is massive. So I hope your listeners are on the tech bandwagon already, because that is the direction of travel in construction. So, we see those scores rising year over year in the TAMI. We developed our index scores based on a bunch of research back in 2020 when we started out. The average out of 10 was 4.9 then. Last year, it was 6.6 when we recalibrated. And if the trend holds, this next year, 2025, the average score is going to top what was initially the high score in 2020.
Wow.
In really 4 years, right? So that's the start of a real hockey stick scenario there. So scores are going up across the board. However, when it comes to looking specifically at AI, it's really not easy to measure AI uptake because it is very integrated with other types of tech. It doesn't stand alone in most cases. So I took the specific techs that we do look at that often utilize AI and looked at that group against the rest. And I did find something pretty interesting. First of all, there's a lot more usage of AI than I initially thought I was going to find. Once I started really pulling them out, it was much more prevalent than I thought. And certainly that's going to expand as our imagination and that creativity I mentioned about how it can be used expands. But also, use in these categories overall is up 16% in 2023 versus 11% for all categories. So the AI containing techs have a 5% higher uptake over that year. Is that due to AI? I can't say that conclusively, but it's an indicator that AI is definitely due a closer look. So I appreciate you inviting me on to talk about it.
Yeah, no, Cheri, something you said there that seems to be key in all of that is that it's a tool. And like you said, it doesn't surprise me that those numbers are rising that rapidly because, yes, my inbox probably looks very much like yours. And I've got tons of, it's like webinars for different AI applications within construction, and then different solicitations to come check out this new tool that we've, developed that is some software dependent AI, integration. And given that in sort of the use as a tool, we've talked to a lot of people in this space, and the focus has kind of been on the work itself as the primary focus for like automation and a concentration in AI. Are there based on your research, sort of some best case uses for AI as an application, or maybe in some that also maybe we need to steer clear of as we start venturing down that road?
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of both. As far as use cases, I mean, AI is like the perfect machine for organizing information into data. It has to be good information, right? If it's bad information, you're going to get bad data. So where you pull the information from matters. But we have so much information in the construction industry that we aren't leveraging because it is not accessible in a structured way. It's like we've got a whole library and it's in a pile on the library floor. You cannot reliably find the tidbit that you need. So you don't even look, right? And if AI could organize that information that's buried in project files, in emails, in risk matrices, et cetera, into a searchable format, that would be very powerful. If I've even heard of one company out there that has created a lessons learned chatbot, which is, you can just query it using natural language to find out what the data is or the information or the lessons that you've learned in the past about similar projects. Talk about making it easy and appealing to younger workers, especially. This is amazing. So another way that you can use AI would be as a muse or a sounding board to help get started on a project, right? You're not going to rely on it for the final result, but it can certainly help point you in some directions that you might not have thought of, or at least help you organize your thoughts as you start out on any particular project. And it may, and this is an important one, it may also relieve some of our limited labor resources, to put it gently, of the drudgery of some of the work we have to do, of the formatting, the filing, and that stuff takes up loads of time, and it's not the highest and best use of the labor that we do have, right? So freeing them up to focus on their uniquely human specialties, their expertise, and the art of construction. There's a lot of art in construction. That's the most fulfilling part of what we do, is apply that art. But sometimes the time to exercise those talents is consumed just by the drudgery type of work. So all in all, I think of AI like it's a whole herd of new interns, right? They can really be a big help, but they're learning. You can't rely on them for the final product, certainly not a high stakes task final result. So here's the way to think about it. If you would give the job to an intern, AI is probably an option. And if you wouldn't, well, for now, that's probably also the answer.
It's the return of the unpaid intern, Cheri. That's what that is.
Oh, we're paying for it.
It is interesting too. You really just can't get away from that human element too. There's that verification element that goes with it, and I think part of that with your innovation team puts AXA uniquely positioned to sort of track and maintain that TAMI data. So I guess maybe the next question I would have, Cheri, is where do you really see the crux or the scope of that tech adoption at a high level? Is it mostly ENR top 50, ENR top 100 contractors? Are there all levels of contractors getting involved to some extent? What are you guys kind of seeing in the market there?
Sure. Well, first of all, of course, yeah, we do see people getting involved at all levels, and a lot in the AI space. A lot of that has to do with just the accessibility of the technology, right? You can just Google it. I mean, like we do that every day. Well, Bing and Bard and all of those things are right there. But so we do see people at all levels struggling with how to use it or using it well, depending on who they are and how hard they've worked on it. So if we look at like overall tech adoption, like we like to call it t-shirt sizes, right? If it's small, medium, large, and extra large, where small is firms under 500 million, medium is 500 to 1.5 billion, large is the 1.5 to $4 billion range, and extra large is over 4. The results, when we kind of break that down, aren't really surprising. Smaller companies score a little lower, a little bit below the average, while the larger ones score higher. And I expect that holds true for AI techs as well. It makes sense. Larger firms have more money. They've got more resources.
Got more resources,
right. To make the investments in the technology. But it's not all great, because where those large companies struggle is getting to the full implementation. It's easier in a smaller company to get there to a full implementation. So there are benefits on both sides of that equation. And if you think about it, we could also see some leaps in the smaller firms that are taking a little longer to get there. If you think like countries that never had landline infrastructure for their telephones, they went straight to cell phones, right? So some may wait to jump on the next solution. So being slower on the draw is not necessarily all bad. It just depends where you want to be and how you want to be viewed as a company.
Yeah, Cheri, I feel like we've addressed this conversation, this question in a past episode, but I feel like I can't keep saying that the knock on the industry is we're slow to take on new technology, because I feel like we're constantly taking on new technology here. But with that, I think sometimes people lose sight, and you laid it out great with that T-shirt analogy, just how big our industry is. I mean, construction is huge, and it encompasses so much, right? Between design, like you said, there's a lot of art in construction, and I think people maybe don't realize just how many. Maybe there's some pretty easy places to see AA popping up, but there's also some small nuanced places maybe you weren't expecting it to pop up. So are you seeing it kind of the same way, where there's some obvious outlooks, but then there's some unique perspectives too, where AI is popping up?
Yeah, I would say, what's driving that is it's kind of two things right now. There's an accessibility issue and there's a focus issue. Just 10, 15 years ago, there just wasn't very much construction technology available. I'm showing my age here, but I remember Palm Pilots being a big deal, cutting edge technology just a little while ago. But wow, that has really changed. And that was the technology at the time, right? Now it's everything, and we're all just kind of exhausted from trying to keep up. Where access to applicable tech then was a challenge just 10 or 15 years ago. Now the availability of almost infinite tech is the challenge, and we have to work on directing our focus onto just the techs that could really make the difference to an organization, and ignoring the rest for a while. It's very overwhelming. You've got to get good at just putting some things on the back burner and not thinking about it. And that's one of the reasons that we started vetting techs for our clients through the Preferred Partners Network, just to filter out some of the noise in that space. And AI is really different here too, because especially talking about large language models here, it is so accessible and it's so useful. People will use them, whether you want them to or not, or whether you tell them how to or not. The way these tools have taken off from a grassroots level, that is unprecedented. I have never seen a tech gain usage through the path that ChatGPT has. It's come from the bottom up, like really all of a sudden folks realized, oh no, we've got to get our hands on this because people everywhere have access to it and they are using it, and we've got to direct that. So it's not just a function of the accessibility of these tools, it's a reflection of the current workforce too. Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, they are all perfectly comfortable with digital work. In fact, they demand it. And if we don't give them guardrails for the use of those solutions, well, there's no telling how those tools are going to get used on our project. There's no telling what information is going to get fed into them, whether you want them to or not. So we have to acknowledge that and create guidelines and training on acceptable uses of the technology. And folks are not having any challenges finding ways to bake AI into existing technology, like I was talking about before, like data analytics, imagery, augmented reality. But we're also seeing significant advancements in areas like fleet telematics and water leak mitigation and document and process automation, and quality management's an exciting space right now. AI really has the potential to be useful anytime there's a repetitive action or a lot of data that needs to be understood and acted on in predictable ways, or to be digested and applied, right? And there's just so much of that in construction today. It's practically the water we swim in, right?
You're bringing me back to, I believe I was at a performing arts center as a kid, and my dad's Palm Pilot playing Sub Hunt, Space Invaders is what saved my 10-year-old self and my 13-year-old brother, as my mom and dad were watching the show. It's like, here's the Palm Pilot, Mike, just, put it on silent,
Yeah, I'm
that's great.
very, very amazed. I actually just the other day was working with some large data sets in Excel, and I used the AI tool that they have to create pivot tables just with plain data, just make a couple of basic requests and some pivot tables and charting that came out of that would have taken me hours to build before. It was done like 2 minutes, and it was beautiful. It was, I was amazed, and I think about dating myself too, even past the Palm Pilot. I go back to days of, I remember when they were sending couriers to deliver bids, and then they started coming in via fax machine, and then we switched over to email, and everybody thought we had really reached the pinnacle of where we were at for bid management. And I'm like, now it's touch of a button, you can create that bid, based on parameters that are already existing, and it still requires a human element to manage that, but just the evolution of that technology, and like you said, Cheri, the access to that technology beyond, like, it wasn't like a B2B transaction that got pushed down to the masses. Everybody immediately had access to it, and it's amazing that, I didn't even go looking for this tool in Excel. It volunteered itself to me and was like, hey, we can do this a lot quicker. We know what you're doing here. And I was, again, like using your cell phone. It's so ubiquitous and easy and accessible. It's really mind blowing for especially somebody like me who's been around for longer than I care to mention on the podcast. But to see that evolution is just it's amazing.
Yeah, honestly, when I left construction in 2012 to come over to XL, we were still faxing and using couriers. Sometimes I was the courier. Those bids in and receiving bids via fax. It was so problematic. It was not good. But even though the technology was available, we weren't utilizing email for that. And that's the difference with AI. Like, the adoption has just been so robust. It's a different ballgame.
Well, Cheri, always an excellent discussion with you, and we appreciate you bringing your expertise to the table and sharing that. And as you know, we kind of like to leave our audience with a couple of takeaways from each of our episodes. What are the big bites here that you would leave us with when our audience has questions about AI and maybe where that's headed? What are the big takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I say this all the time, and I say it about everything. But number one takeaway: start with the why. What do you want to accomplish, and who do you want to accomplish it for? That is the North Star of, well, pretty much everything, but especially looking at any tech. There are lots of sexy techs out there. Don't let your head be turned by a great solution that does not answer for your challenge. And communicate that why. Make sure your teams understand why you're looking at a particular tech, so they understand what the organization is going to get from it, and their buy-in will be much better. And just a bit of a side point to that one, like, same as any other communications, you cannot restate it too much. You cannot post it in too many places. You can't say it in enough different ways for people to understand the communications around text, and the text that you're looking at needs to be varied in media, in messenger, in timing. It has to continue over time. There's not an endpoint to that communication of getting the message out there of, here's why we want to look at this tech, and here's how we think it'll help us. And then, I'd say the next thing would be to bring diverse team members to the table when you're thinking about how to use AI. That variety of viewpoints means you're going to discover more and more relevant use cases. People from different parts of the organization are going to have different perspectives. They're all valid, they're all right, and they need to be taken into consideration. And you'll also, as a side benefit of that, get greater buy-in throughout the whole enterprise. If their team had a hand in developing the uses that you're going to put that tech to. And then third, AI is not going to wait for you to be ready. Like, you got to get in front of it. Like we've talked about, this tech is so powerful, it's so accessible, it's so convincing. People are going to use it whether you're ready or not. So if you're waiting, you're already behind. Like, it's incumbent on businesses to communicate what uses are okay, which ones are not, and to provide a safer sandbox by putting up some guardrails. So, and one approach that I think is pretty smart is to just amend your internet and social media usage policy to include AI use. It's kind of the same thing. It's the same lane, at least, right?
Yeah, and I feel like that last point goes right into the next question here, which is the action item, right? If you're looking at this, you're going, you're right, Cheri's right, we got to make a change here. We got to start thinking about things. What's that first step? So maybe you already kind of gave us one with amending the policy to include AI with social media, but what might be that first step outside of that as well if I'm looking to make that shift?
Yeah, strategically, get yourself a roadmap for this that's aligned with your business. Start with that why, as I mentioned earlier. Start with the problems that you want to solve for yourself. Don't let your head be turned by some new sparkly application of technology that doesn't really address a real need that you have. There are a lot of techs out there starting their sales pitch with, hey, look at all the data you could glean from this, and what could you do with that? And that is very tempting. Like, we all want more information and to act on it. But if you can start with a real problem that you have and bake that into your roadmap, then whatever data that you get from that is going to be useful to you. It's going to be about a real problem that you're facing. So the roadmap really is important to allow folks to focus on the techs that are material to their problems, to their challenges, and leave the rest, however cool, for later. There are only so many hours in a day, right?
Well, I guess sort of whittling that down based on that premise, Cheri, is there an area or a tool that sort of captures your attention the most? Is there like some element of like generative AI versus something else? Like what draws your attention?
Well, I mean, of the AI using techs that are out there right now, I'm very excited about the water leak mitigation tools that are available that learn what the normal flows are in a system and then can actually shut off a valve, can stop the leak from happening. I mean, that's amazing. But if I were to get a little out there, and stay with me because this is the inside of my head, I think there's real potential in worker protection. I'm really, really interested in the intersection of various technologies and then how you bake them together with AI. And I think this could be a big opportunity in safety that allows us to do what we've always said we want to do and be more thorough and predictive with safety. Like, if we could bring together schedule technology and imagery. So what we plan to do, what we see is actually happening, and AI, could we stay in front of tomorrow's risks? Not today's risks, tomorrow's risks, in a more effective manner through the use of imagery. Can we see the hazards that the crew are going to encounter tomorrow? Can we bring it all together? Can we always be focused on the right things and always be equipping our people with the right information that they're going to need? Not that they need right now, but here's how you can get in front of what you're going to face tomorrow. I think we could. But the challenge right now is our people can't be everywhere. They can't see everything. They can't speak to everyone every day, but there are techs that can, and the data digestion that AI kind of enables from those technologies that capture that information, I think it could lead us to these forward-looking actions that will actually make the industry safer, because there are very hard problems in construction safety. I think AI could be a piece of that.
Yeah, you kind of answered my next question, which is, if we were making a prediction about what the next 5 years looks like, then Cheri, it sounds like in your mind the wearables and the worker safety and the AI integrated with that is really one of the next areas that's going to take off.
Yeah, wearables is an interesting space, and it's one of the lagging technologies within everything we measure, because it's a little bit of a hard sell for a lot of different reasons that people are familiar with.
We still got trouble getting people to wear hard hats, right, Cheri? I mean, like data analytics wearables got to be, that's an extra level.
Right. So we thought COVID was going to fix this problem, that people would become acclimated to wearables because we had to use them for a while there. But when COVID started to die down, that we actually went, right back to where we were. So, but I'm completely riffing here. Can AI plug into wearables and actually prevent, collisions or accidents similar to collision prevention on a car? Can it actually stop you from doing something stupid, or keep a piece of equipment from not seeing you and injuring a person? I think that's possible and would be pretty exciting. Fleet telematics is a super exciting space too. There's so much potential and so much need there. The potential to prevent accidents, or if it comes to it, to defend against nuclear verdicts. It also gets into reducing greenhouse gas emissions by better route planning and workplace planning. It enables positive social impact by making the drivers and the communities that they work in safer. And that's really covering a lot of bases. That's tech tying in with all the facets of the things you need to report around sustainability, and thinking about how you take credit for the things that tech is doing along those lines for you is a pretty interesting line of inquiry right now. Let's see. And then I think digital twins over the next 5 years will probably have a moment. Typically, we see, again, this is another tech that's kind of lagging, and it makes sense because they're usually only used when an owner wants it. Perfect, because it doesn't do a whole lot for the contractor. It does a lot for the owner. So that makes sense. But as the requirements for reporting on billing performance increases, I think digital twins probably become a more important piece of that puzzle.
And more cost effective to build and maintain too. I know, like with digital twins, that was one of the problems, was just the expense of creating it for a contractor relative to the use case just wasn't feasible in a lot of circumstances. And you're right, but the building owner who's going to use it to automate and manage the building, they get a lot of benefit out of that. But if you can build it on the front end, because the AI is contributing to bringing the cost down, I mean, that's such a huge area for growth, I think, within the industry, just in BIM use cases and digital twin use cases and all the data those capture. That's an amazing advancement into something that was already kind of, I think, pushing the industry forward in a big way.
Yeah, agreed.
So then maybe to put a bow on this then, Cheri, while it sounds like everyone's benefiting from this, if you had to put your money on it as to which area or which segment of our industry has the most to gain, what do you think that would be? Would it be labor? Is it safety, quality, design? All of them, but who's got the most to gain, you think?
No, really, I think the potential to help solve for labor challenges is the main benefit. Tech affects our labor outlook in a lot of ways. It's an important piece. You got to back up and think about it. It's an important piece of that talent attraction puzzle, the talent retention puzzle. Next year, they say 75% of the workforce is going to be millennials and Gen Z. They absolutely require a tech-forward approach to work. They're digital natives. They're not interested in going backwards. They don't want a fax machine. This technology is a feature, not a bug, as they say. Tech is not a challenge for them. A lack of tech is. So, and then you take it beyond that and just consider how few workers we actually have compared to how many we need. And I'm not saying give construction jobs to robots, though there will be some of that. I'm saying we desperately need more help than we have any likelihood of getting. Backlogs are up, but the number of folks that are available to do the work is not. So the tech is going to be an important part of that equation and a pretty exciting piece of it. And then there's kind of the job satisfaction piece of talent retention. I know I'm happier with my job when I get to do the things that I'm uniquely skilled at, right? Like anything that tech can handle for me, it can have it. And then I and our workforce will be happier because they'll get to be more fully exercising their art and their expertise within their work.
Yeah, no, everyone deserves to be happy in the work they do, and I think that's a great outlook on that, Cheri. Wrapping this up here, we thank you so much for your time, and we have to ask you, right? It's a Building Bite, so it's the building insurance technologies with the experts. I know that you're down in Texas, but we last spoke. You were talking about how you spent some time in Colorado. Maybe hitting us with a different venue here, but what are you taking a bite out of, or where do you wish you were taking a bite out of today?
Yeah, well, Tommy, tonight I'm at home, so I'm cooking. I'm making ratatouille, but I wish it was in Colorado right now. We've got a great little hole-in-the-wall Mexican place in Pueblo that I'm dying to get back to called the El Charro Grill. It's total hole-in-the-wall place, but it is on my go there soon list for sure.
That's awesome. Those are the best places too, the hole-in-walls.
Absolutely. Those are the ones Mike and I add to the list when we're traveling. When we're out, we're like, yep, that's going to be one we're going to put on the list.
Yep, for sure.
Well, Cheri, thank you again for taking the time to chat with us today. I'm sure our listeners are probably going to be very interested in maybe continuing this conversation. If they want to hook up with you after the podcast, where can they find you?
Yeah, my email is cheri.hanes@axaxl.com, and I am on LinkedIn as Cheri Hanes. Be happy to talk. Thanks for the opportunity today, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you again. Definitely appreciate the time. And also, it's just a cool topic to cover. So I appreciate you bringing that to the table and look forward to chatting with you again soon.
That'll be great. Looking forward to it.
Thank you for listening to The Building Bite. This podcast has been brought to you by Proactive. Check us out on thebuildingbite.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on social media for all future The Building Bite news and updates. You can also find us on your favorite apps, including Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Amazon. If you have ideas for episode topics that we should cover on the show, or you know somebody who would be a perfect guest, let us know at connect@thebuildingbite.com.